Ahoj, vítejte u další epizody podcastu 2050. Běžně se tu spolu bavíme o tom, jaké aspekty transformace vzhledem ke změně klimatu čekají Českou republiku v nejbližších letech.
Občas se na celou situaci díváme taky z perspektivy Evropy.
Dnes ale zavítáme daleko za její hranice. Petr s Ondrášem se totiž potkali s jeho excelencí velvyslancem Indické republiky v Česku Hemantem Kotalwarem a společně se bavili o tom, jak změna klimatu ovlivňuje život v Indii.
Dozvíte se například, jaké plány má Indie pro udržitelný rozvoj, co v oblasti transformace již dělá a jakým výzvám čelí v porovnání s Českou republikou a Evropskou unií.
Rozhovor necháváme zaznít v původním znění, tedy v angličtině. Těm z vás, kteří angličtinou nevládnou, se tímto omlouváme. Příští epizoda už ale bude opět v češtině. Teď už se ale pojďme ponořit do rozhovoru a představit si našeho hosta.
I'm Hemanta Kotalwara. I'm the Indian ambassador to Czech Republic, and I'm in Prague since October 2020. And it's always a pleasure to look at the debates and to see what is happening in the European Union, especially in Czech Republic.
Well, the one very interesting thing you said was that it's okay because in India climate change is not a political issue, and we were like, oh, I envy you, kind of.
How comes that in India climate change is not a political issue?
How did you do it?
I mean, as you're aware that India is an energy deficient country, although we have a lot of coal mines and a lot of coal, but still we depend on oil. Almost 70 to 80% of our oil requirement is met by the Gulf countries. And we are also importing gas. We have the nuclear mix. So, I mean, we have all the options of all the energy mix options. But over a period of time, we have realized that we are huge dependence on oil and we need to reduce this dependence. And if you want to reduce this dependence, I think the solar and the wind is a major contributor. And since we don't have a debate on these issues, I mean, nobody is saying that why only solar or wind. I mean, the cake is too big that everybody can contribute. So there are no limitations at all. I mean, we can absorb as much solar as possible or as much wind as possible because our requirements are very huge. So that is the reason, maybe that is the reason why we don't have any politics.
Well, is that politics about the transition or energy transition, or is there even no politics about climate change as a threat? Does it come, the climate change as a threat, does it come to the public discussions?
I mean, as far as the politics is concerned, I mean, there could be a politics on why, let's say, solar is preferred over wind. Because the government is providing a lot of subsidies. There is some the premium paid to the solar and wind. And so there could be some sort of politics or that. Or maybe the nuclear lobby could say that, okay, that why we are not preferred. But it has not gone to that extent. Because the solar pie is big, wind pie is very big, and now we have started this reverse bidding. So that actually helps because it's very competitive. So the government is not fixing any rates. In fact, now the rates for the solar have dropped to such levels that they are lesser than the thermal power plants. So I think that has, to a certain extent, I mean, over a period of, let's say, 10 years, we had seen high tariff rates. The government used to fix a rate saying that, okay, this is the incentive that we are going, why don't you invest in the solar? Now it's the reverse bidding. And the second question, I think I forgot what you said.
Well, for me, India is strongly connected with the heat waves, with the floods, with the impacts of climate change. And so, how are these impacts of climate change going in India in the public debate? Is India strongly affected by the climate change? What will unmitigated climate change mean for India?
I mean, like in every country, India is also not immune to this climate change. In fact, while coming to Brno, my daughter was showing me one report which says that the big cities like Mumbai, the part of the city would be below the water by 2030. I mean, this is such a serious thing. I mean, during my lifetime, I'll be able to see some parts of Mumbai under the water, if that is the case. And apart from that, because India is a huge coastline of something like 7,500 kilometers. So this will have a huge impact on our coastal economy. And at the same time, we have a lot of areas where the cycle of the monsoon, in fact, we get rains from the monsoon winds. And this whole cycle is getting disturbed because of the climate change. Like I belong to a place in Maharashtra in India where there's always a water scarcity. Like when I was young, when I was a child, it used to be a regular rainfall, and in our house we used to get regular supply of water, like every day. But over a period of time, now I realize that we get water once in 2 weeks. Can you imagine a house getting water in 2 weeks? Once in 2 weeks. So basically, you need to store water and then maintain it for 2 weeks.
And you mean water or drinking water?
I mean, it's entire thing. So there's no. I mean, for us to have a 24/7 supply of water is a dream. We cannot just open the tap and there'll be water. We cannot take it for granted. Somebody has to make an effort to store water in a tank and then use that water. So just imagine in my house, I get water like once in 2 weeks. Just imagine the kind of water you require. And in fact, in one summer, we had a situation where there was no water around and the water had to be carried by trains. So this is the impact which everybody is feeling. Can you imagine just like oil tankers, the water tankers are being used for getting the water. And the amount of money that you have to spend for getting water supply or to have like proper water. So it's water is like a luxury.
So what you're saying is that that's the impacts of climate change are very visible to the entire population of India.
Exactly.
And is it connected? Because when we are starting talking about electricity, about renewables, is this connected to the topic of climate change? Is it like we need to build more renewables because we want to mitigate climate change? Because that's the case in Europe, I think, mostly. Is it the same, or is it just like, let's build some more solar because why not? We need the electricity anyway. Where is the debate on that?
In our case in India, for example, if I am deprived of 24/7 electricity supply, if in my place, if I get the electricity supply for, let's say, 10 hours per day or 12 hours per day, so you basically think of how do I get a supply for the rest of the 10 hours. So one option is to have the batteries in your house. Like in India, it's very common to have an inverter where you store electricity whenever there's a power supply, and then use it when there's a power cutoff. So we are looking at renewables. Maybe the climate change is a bigger issue, but for my daily life, I need renewable to reduce my electricity bill, and secondly, to get uninterrupted supply of electricity for 24 hours. Because I know that if I put a solar panel over my house, I will reduce the power consumption. I will reduce the electricity required for heating water. So this will result in a lot of saving for me.
It seems to me that the approach is much more practical than in Czech Republic. We need water, we don't have water, so we have to mitigate climate change or it will get worse. We need electricity and we need it to be cheaper, so we build renewables. It's not an ideological question, it's a practical question for
Exactly, it's a question of survival. For example, lots of villages in India don't have uninterrupted supply of electricity. What do? How do you charge your phone, for example, the basic thing? So you put a 1 watt or 2 watt of solar panel near a house and you can charge your phone.
So is there even the topic, because in Europe it's all framed with the topics of sustainability and green transformation, and are these words something that means anything in India, or is it really just practical? And
sustainability in Europe is how to sustain the state we are in, how to be sustainable for a longer time, because what we are in is not sustainable.
Well, I don't think that the general European population sees the definition of the word like this, I mean, the practical approach. It's a green topic, and in India it's more of a practical topic. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as you're right, Ondráš, in fact, you mentioned sustainable. When you say sustainable, I mean, I'm used to certain kind of life, and I would like to maintain that kind of life in future. In India, it's the other way around. I'm in a certain state of life, and I want to improve my life.
Yeah.
And I look at this renewables or other electricity power options for improving my lifestyle. So it's a question of survival. It's for me, I need it today. For Europe, maybe it's for future. For me, it's today.
That's completely different framing for me, because in Europe, it's how can we make green transition and maintain the lifestyle that we have? And for you is how can we get better lifestyles, better lifestyle conditions?
Exactly.
And what can help us? And the green transition kind of is helping.
Yeah.
So what are the plans for the green transition in India?
I mean, just like the traditional plans, like having a lot of green cover. Of course, we are focusing on a lot of solar and wind energy because India is a tropical country and we have a lot of sunlight. So we want to harness the solar energy for our energy requirement. And as far as this, we have made a commitment of 2070 for carbon, for zero neutrality.
But the commitment for 2030 was even more impressive in terms of renewables.
Because for 2030, our commitment for renewable energy is like 500 gigawatt of renewable power. So
which is half of the supply for the whole country, or
this will be around half. So right now we already crossed 100 gigawatt of power through renewable. So out of this 100, let's say 70 gigawatt would be solar and 30 gigawatt would be wind energy. And that is the reason why we have started this intergovernmental agency called International Solar Alliance. And around 105 countries have already joined this International Solar Alliance. The idea is basically to work together on this solar, on the green issues, especially on solar energy, so that we can reduce the cost of generating solar energy, to reduce our dependence on certain countries for the solar panels. Ultimately, even solar energy over a period of 20 years, we have seen how much it has improved, how much the efficiency of the solar panels has increased. And I think that is a joint effort to basically work on different issues through this International Solar Alliance.
I can imagine that the 500 gigawatts it's a practical step, but then I would like to ask about the 2070 step, climate neutrality. I believe even for India, that goal is not only practical, is it? Like, wouldn't it be more practical for India to stay with coal in some cases, or different kind of energy sources?
I mean, we are facing a lot of problems with the coal because the quality of coal in India is not that good because of the calorific value of coal is a little lesser compared to, let's say, the Australian coal or let's say the Indonesian coal. So we are still importing coal, although we have a lot of coal deposits. But this is basically required for thermal power generation because still around 50% of our energy, electricity supply is coming from coal. So we just cannot wish away, although we would like to reduce our coal dependence. So I think for a certain period of time, we need to import coal to meet the demands of our population, to meet the demands of our industry, and to ensure growth of the country.
And what is motivating the 2070 climate neutrality target?
I mean, I think for 2070, I think, of course, it's quite far from us, but we have set a target of 2030. And I think it depends also on sector to sector. Let's say maybe what I visualize is that every industry will say that, okay, we'll go for carbon neutrality by a certain period of time. And maybe over a period of time, I think we'll be able to achieve it by 2070. If Europe is targeting 2050, I think we can always learn from each other. And
so what you're saying basically is quite far, and what you are focusing on right now are the closer targets, like 2030.
Yeah, exactly, targets. Exactly. And in fact, there is also a lot of focus on energy storage. So we have formed an organization for energy storage. The idea is basically to reduce the cost of storing energy, because if you're going to have solar energy, solar is not something which is a steady supply of energy, but you need to store it in the night and then use it in the night.
You said about these alliances, but as far as I know, India also started, I think it was this year, this Badla solar park, this biggest solar park, biggest photovoltaic power plant in the world. Are there plans for more of such projects, or?
I think we are looking at different projects for increasing the contribution of solar energy. And because of the idea is basically that if you are going to have a bigger power plant, then the investor would be motivated to reduce the cost of generating electricity. If you want to have a smaller power plant, maybe then the rate may not go down. Idea is basically to reduce the rate, just go to the bottom. At the end of the day, go to the bottom and provide as cheaper as possible. Because anyway, the solar power is already, in India, it's lesser than the thermal power plant.
And you probably have big parts of land that is not very much used, like in Rajasthan.
Exactly. So we don't have a fertile, not in Czech Republic, in you a lot of fertile land. In India, we have fertile land, but the ratio is not that favorable. So we have a lot of barren land which could be used for solar power generation. So that is not a big problem. Land is not a problem for us, for a country like India. So it's not a challenge at all. If there is a power project, I think every state will be competing, saying that we'll be ready to provide free of cost. So land is not a challenge.
That's what you said in the beginning. There is enough for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. There is a huge competition because everybody would like to reduce the dependence on oil, dependence on gas. So the renewable is the best option.
And as an Indian ambassador, being in Czech Republic, you see our public discussion, you see our efforts to mitigate climate change. And what do you see from your perspective?
It's a very interesting debate that we see in Czech Republic or in European Union. Basically, when I came here, the discussion was on the European Green Deal and how it is important for the European Union. It was said that the European Green Deal is like the man on the moon moment for the European Union because it can take the European Union to a new level. And I really agree with it because it's not just carbon emissions, but I think what you visualize is a new industry 4.0 where the products will be meeting certain standards. For example, if India is going to export steel or certain products, the European Union is going to impose some tariffs saying that there is a lot of carbon content. So I think the European Union is looking at a situation where my T-shirt will have a carbon footprint mention on it, and they say that the customer will refuse the T-shirt because the carbon footprint has crossed a certain level. So there'll be a penalty on that. So I think if you're looking at it, then this will have huge implications for the world, not only in industry, but also geopolitics and other things, because it will change the world completely. I think this is what we are looking at it. Of course, that debate is not there in India. In India, we don't have this emission trading system, or we don't have the initiatives that the European Union is going to plan to take during this transition to 2025 or 2030 or carbon zero by 2050. But I think we need to learn a lot from the European Union. But it's very interesting to learn.
You're speaking about the European level, and you are an ambassador to Czech Republic. And I will frame the question like this: yeah, hypothetically, if you were hired by Czech government as a consultant on climate topics, what would you say we should do as a country, as a political representation?
We consider, for example, if I am a consultant, as a hypothetical situation, if I am a consultant in Czech Republic, I know that Czech Republic is a hub of technologies, and Czech Republic can really contribute to the technologies which are required for fighting climate change. For example, I have seen a lot of companies which are working on solar technologies. I mean, maybe they are importing solar panels, but at the same time, there's a lot of electronics required for increasing the efficiency of the solar panels and connecting the solar panels to the power grid. So, I mean, there are lots of, I think the Czechs are basically good in these technologies, and I think this is where you need to work on it. For example, Czech Republic is not part of the International Solar Alliance, which is in India and is the initiative of India and France. But maybe if I am a consultant, maybe I can see how Czech Republic can join the International Solar Alliance and derive benefits coming out of this. Maybe the Czech Republic may not have that kind of potential for solar because of the weather. But I think nobody is stopping you from deriving benefits from technology.
It's funny to try to look at the Czech public debate from like perspective of world, not from Czech perspective, but from the perspective of world. Like, what are you trying to solve here by the debates about the electric cars, by the debates about whether we can put more solar and wind in our countryside? The world will change, and our local public debate is about like protecting the status quo and protecting our coal power plants and like staying the same. which is weird in the changing world. How can we stay the same in a changing world?
Yeah, I can actually see, I mean, the debate within Czech Republic where there's some reluctance in some quarters to join, to become the active member of the European Green Deal, let me say that. For example, I can see there's a lot of dependence on coal. You already have the nuclear power plants. And I think it's, and plus there's little reluctance on the solar and wind because of the topography of the country. So maybe the potential does not exist to meet your requirements. So Czech has to take a certain position on nuclear because ultimately at the end of the day, nuclear is a good option. If you want to reduce your dependence on, let's say, coal or reduce your dependence on gas or these fossil fuels, I mean, coal is a better option. I mean, when I was following the debate in the US, they say that why should we look down upon the nuclear power plants? If you look at, let's say, the number of people who died because of the nuclear power plant is like much lesser compared to the thermal power plants or any other plants. So I think the idea is basically not to close certain option, and I think I agree with Czech Republic that the nuclear could be a good option. I mean, in India we have lots of nuclear power plants, although their contribution to the energy mix is very limited, but we are not closed the option.
For me, was also very interesting your point that you kind of disconnected the two things, that we don't have to create 100% of electricity from solar panels in the Czech area, but still we can be a world technology leader in the sector. And I think this kind of thinking also is not present in Czech Republic. Is when we do something for solar, the ecosystem, then we have to build them in the Czech Republic and la la la.
And a lot of public debate is about the European Union is forcing us to do something.
Exactly.
It's not we want to do something.
I think, in fact, frankly speaking, I see the European Green Deal not from the carbon, to reduce the carbon footprint. Of course, that's an important aspect, but it's basically changing the face of the industry. I mean, Czech Republic played an important role in Industry 1.0 or 2.0. I think this is a good opportunity for Czech Republic to contribute to the European Green Deal and become an active participant in Industry 4.0. Because maybe I won't be able to use the same machinery that is used for manufacturing certain products because the footprint is very high. So maybe the Czechs can come out with new machinery which will reduce the carbon footprint. I mean, ultimately, it's the technology that is required if you want to reduce the carbon emissions.
Thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Tak to byl velvyslanec Indické republiky v Česku Hemanta Kotalwara. Petře, co si takhle s odstupem z vašeho setkání odnášíš pro sebe? Ptám se, protože tyhle komentáře natáčíme několik týdnů po tom, co jste se s panem velvyslancem reálně potkali.
Pro mě bylo zajímavé si uvědomit, jak moc je to jiný kontext. Protože zatímco u nás je transformace brána spíš jako hrozba, nebo je potřeba to udělat dobře, tak v Indii je to zejména vnímáno jako rozvojová příležitost. A taky mně přišlo hezký, jak jsme si tam hráli s tím slovem sustainability, neboli udržitelnost, kdy on zdůrazňoval, že oni vlastně se nechtějí udržet v tom stavu, v jakém jsou. Zatímco my ano, my chceme jako si zachovat životní úroveň a zároveň udržet životní prostředí tak, jak je. On říkal, že u nich to je úplně naopak, že oni vlastně to chtějí změnit, oni nechtějí nic udržet. Tak tenhle ten vlastně rozdíl mi přišel zásadní a byl pro mě hrozně oči otevírající.
OK, díky. Dnešní exkurze do toho, jak se řeší klimatická změna v Indii, je u konce. No a my se zase brzy těšíme na slyšenou.
Ahoj. Ve vztahu ke změnám klimatu prochází celý svět aktuálně obrovskou transformací.
V projektu Fakta o klimatu a podcastu 2050 přispíváme k tomu, abychom touto transformací prošli jako společnost úspěšně.
Dává vám naše práce smysl? Podpořte nás prosím finančně. Zrovna letos máme navíc dohodnutý takzvaný matching s firmou Myton. To znamená, že když nám teď pošlete 100, my dostaneme rovnou 2.
Darovat můžete na našem webu 2050podcast.cz.